Sack's not here, so I'm gonna do something to take his place. I don't know what it'll be like, but we'll give it a try. We'll call the meeting to order, and we do have a quorum. Make sure you turn your mics on if you're talking. I need a motion, or is there any changes or exceptions to the agenda?
Move to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Likewise, nay. A general public comment. If there's any general public comment, we'll listen to it now. Do we have anybody online, dear? Okay. So if there's no general public comment, we'll go to new business. We need to adopt the minutes of June 3rd, 2026.
I am going to abstain from that vote since I wasn't present for that meeting.
Okay, we have one member abstaining.
I'll move as such written.
We have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. So we read the first case. It looks like we have two cases tonight to look at. And our first case is going to be case number ZOA-05-26-01, sign ordinance amendment. This is the second workshop. The Board of Supervisors have directed the Planning Commission to consider amendments to Madison County Code of Ordinance, Appendix 1, Article 12-1-2, 16, and 12-6-15. You want to tell us what you know, Alan?
Mr. Elliott, the changes are redlined in the packet, and they are in two sections. Definition of a temporary sign is proposed here, as well as the, further in the ordinance, for the 12-6-15 defines election day, meaning the final day of the election. And further than that, I'm going to let Mr. Wright do the explaining on this one.
We did the workshop last time, and I'm pulling it up. I think the other thing we were going to do is give an option, and I don't know if I don't see it in the package, but the other option would have been simply to delete 12-6-15 in its entirety and just say repealed. That is your second possible course of action here. So this is, I'll say, one option, which is trying to comport with Supreme Court case law and still have signs at county-owned polling places on, the 36 hours before and after Election Day. Your other option is just to simply say, forget it. No signs.
Okay, do we have any comments or questions from the commission?
I do have one comment, Mr. Elliott, and
Yes,
that
sir.
is, and this is not so much from a commissioner, but from the chair of the electoral board. I think that the wordmanship that Mr. Hannah's done is really good. It corrects the problems that we had in this ordinance. Number one, it changes the definition of a temporary sign to what it is, not what it does. So I think that's a very good thing. And the second, in the 12-6-15, where he has defined Election Day as meaning the final day of the election. That's a good thing. We've redefined it here. Election Day is still, what that means is still up in the air. The Supreme Court has it under consideration. We'll probably opine on it later this month. But by saying meaning the final day of the election, we've redefined to whatever the Supreme Court holds Election Day to be, whether it's the very last day of the election or, in the case of early voting, whether Election Day is the day you cast a ballot. And I rise to describe that only in that we're knocking on the door of 50% of our voters being early voters. And that means either they mail in their ballot, which is a minimal amount, or they show up here to vote. And the fact that you have no signage whatsoever on site is the decision we're trying to make because other candidates and parties were really littering the place and causing a problem for maintenance. I don't have a problem with this at all the way it's drafted. I think it works. There is the First Amendment argument as whether or not we want to restrict signage at all. If we want to restrict it for the purposes that we tried to restrict it earlier, I certainly don't have a problem with that, other than to inform you that half of the voters in the county are voting in this building, and there will be no signage whatsoever for them ever during the course of the early voting.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any comments, questions for Alan? Hear none, I guess we can move on to this. This seems like something we'll be ready to vote on and send to the board.
Mr. Vice Chairman, so is it the intent of the Planning Commission that it go forward as presented with the changes that have been presented here, or do you want to see something different?
I think, Alan, what I'm seeing or hearing is go forward like it is. Has anybody got any objections to that?
So my suggestion is that we bring forth two, one with simply repealing it, as well as this one. The Planning Commission make a decision, or recommendation rather, and then they both go up to the board for decision. One being, not recommended, one being recommended, whatever. And then, I'm saying this more in terms of like advertising, letting everybody know what the possibilities are, what we're thinking about doing, so that there's not some crazy surprise on, actual Board of Supervisors voting day.
Okay.
Mr. Wright, I have a question.
Yes.
Providing a second solution of no signs, would that incur risk for the county that it infringes on people's First Amendment right?
I think it's minimal risk because it is in sort of limited spots and it's uniform across the board.
I think the way this is drafted, it means no signs. No signs of this building.
That's true. Yes.
Election day.
Clay, hit your mic, please. Hit your mic, please.
Who normally is on it with me. If they're not voting here, then the 36 hours takes care of it, doesn't it? And on the free speech component, if we vote to go against or to recommend no signage at all, then we're discriminating against everybody.
But,
Yeah, that's a win.
yeah, that was really the purpose of my question, is to clarify that I think when we make a suggestion to the board, we want to mitigate any risk that the county could incur with having a First Amendment right lawsuit pressed against them.
Sure.
And so I'm just looking at it through the lens of having a recommendation that balances both, and one is more risky than the other.
Good points. And I will do maybe a more formal analysis of that before we come back.
So based on what Mr. Wright said, do we feel like we are in agreement to let Alan post this for a public hearing?
I like how it's
Case-
written.
The case is already advertised for a public hearing in a way that is very permissive for lots of changes. And so it says that, in effect, that the board may consider to either modify or strike or keep, or there's a lot of options there. So no matter what the decision is on these ordinances, any of them have been advertised as open for discussion and change. So all the options are on the table.
Personally, I would recommend, just procedurally, that we go with recommending as it's written here, and then the board of supervisors, in their infinite wisdom, can do whatever they want.
Very good.
Okay, with hearing no more comments, we'll move on.
Mr. Vice Chairman, would you like to ask for public comment on this case?
Public comment on this case? Yes, me.
Yeah, my name's Clint Hyde. I live over in Radiant. A few of you know me already. So I looked at the writing as we have it on the screen there, I don't know, a week or two ago. And having at the previous meeting for the Planning Commission on this topic, I presented about a dozen little detailed suggestions I had as to modifications that would make it far clearer what is and is not, or should and should not be incorporated here as part of the ordinance itself. None of which showed up in any of this language. Jim Smith may like this, but I think this is laughably inadequate. It says nothing hardly at all beyond, can't be bigger than 6 feet. So when it comes time that it is okay to put a sign out there, can I put a sign out for my business? Has nothing to do with the election? Why is that a thing that we would want to have happen? How many signs can I put out there? Is there a designated space? Here's this 15, 20, 30, whatever it is, square foot area on the lawn where you can go stick a sign out there. Well, how about if I go out there with 50 signs and I occupy the entire space? The moment the time window opens up. Is that fair to anybody else? No, but maybe that was my entire point in the process, is I'm just going to block it for everybody. And is there anything here that says, nah, you only get to do one sign? No, there's nothing. So you all walked in the front door as I did here this afternoon. And there's a sign out there right now. It looks like it's a county sign, but there's no attribution of any kind on there. It just has that feel to the content. I think that sort of deal entirely misses the point that ought to be made here, that you want to put a sign out here, we're not going to necessarily violate your First Amendment right. And if we say, okay, 6 feet and you got a 6-foot sign, great. Put your name on it, right? That way we could say, oh, this is Clint's sign. And people who don't like Clint can get cranky about it and say, well, that's got to go away. And they'll show up at 2 a.m. and yank the sign and drive off, and so much for my sign. But equally then I could do the same to somebody else's. Like that sign with no attribution. What happens if I come back here in the middle of the night tonight and say, well, who the hell knows who put this sign up here? I think I'll just take it and throw it away. At what point do we say, well, no, that was a sign you're not allowed to just pick up and yank because that was a county sign. It is not a county sign. There's no attribution on there. That's an anybody sign. And then we just get into the back and forth tit for tat of these guys don't like these guys' signs, vice versa, etc. We need to have that kind of routine eliminated up front so that we don't get into that goofy sign battle that serves nobody's purposes at all. And these words here completely miss the target as far as I'm concerned. So I'll be back for the other public comment if we're going to have another meeting about this. Then I'll have the same things, and then I'll remember my list of items too, because I forgot about that today. Sorry about that. Thank you. Anyway, that's all I need to say.
So, Mr. Wright, could you address that for us, please?
Sure. So in terms of where you can and can't have it, there's Virginia code about how close you can be and the like. In terms of attribution, there is also some state code as far as that. You also run the risk of forced speech if you go beyond what that state law says. I don't know if we want to get into the game of counting signs and how many can we each have, or whether even that would be permissible. And to the question of, can the sign say pretty much, you know, can it advertise a business? Yeah, sure. We're not regulating what it says. It could, I don't even know if it could say F off. I mean, I can look into that. I would assume it could, but
Well, doesn't all political signs have to have paid for and sponsored by whoever it is on it?
That is the state law. There is a specific, very precise definition of what that has to say and.
and then, you know, what if it's a PAC that put it up or a proxy? You know, I'm not sure what the rules are on those sort of, I'll say cutouts.
Does anyone else have anything to add or any questions?
Yeah, this ordinance refers to each of our precincts, which become county property because we lease them on election day. So we have had problems with campaigns in the past, leaving their signage up, putting it in too early. We've lost polling places as a result of it, leaving the places littered. So it doesn't refer just to this building and this property. It's all the county property, and the property that the electoral board leases on the day of election is also covered here. And regarding the removal of appropriate signs, that's within the purview of the zoning administrator as stated in the proposed ordinance, so that's not an issue.
And one other comment, what we're dealing with right now is only the definition of temporary sign and the polling place signs. First of is to define what temporary means, and then we have just the language for when the polling places, when the election is over. We also already have the business sign as a definition of type, and we also already have, where is it? Public sign, which is anything related, specified by federal, state, or local government agency. So those types of signs are already regulated otherwise. So this is only for a very specific situation that we're trying to make these changes.
Alan, you have anything you want to add to that?
Only if you have very specific questions. Otherwise, I have no general comment.
Anybody else have any questions? Then we'll move on. I think we've got an understanding of what's there and what we're trying to accomplish. So we'll move to the next case. And the next case is case number ZOA-05-26-02, Site Plan Ordinance Amendment, Second Workshop. Staff has proposed amendment to the Madison County Code of Ordinance, Appendix 1, Appendix A, Article A.9.1 to establish a limit of site plans variability.
All right, so this proposed ordinance change here is for a very specific purpose. Generally speaking, when site plans come through the zoning office and are reviewed and approved, generally speaking, there's not been any time limit established on that as far as the period of their validity. The Virginia State Code states explicitly that they are valid for a period of time not less than 5 years, implying that there is in fact a limit, but it would be up to localities to define what that limit is. So as a result of our appeal recently, in which we had a property owner had I don't even really want to call it a site plan, but it was a concept for development that they were treating as a site plan to develop 87 mobile home sites on a property, in which historically only 26 have been established. That plan was filed in 1973. And so when they questioned the rights to complete that project, I told them no, and that, that use was no longer a conforming use and had not been diligently pursued. 53 years is too long to take to pursue your project. But it was appealed, and eventually the decision was upheld. But it would be very nice from an administrative standpoint to define what the limits are. And I do want to be clear that there is no intention here of putting of limiting our folks who are pursuing projects, pursuing financing, developing engineering, trying to complete their projects. There's no intention here to limit phased development, but rather to ensure that when approvals are done, the term is defined and it's clear when the project is dead, if the diligent pursuit is not executed towards these projects. So that way you have a very clear path for administration and nothing is subjective. It's always better to have something quantitative here than qualitative. So, and I'll give you an example. I was talking the other day to Eric Watson, who now owns the Inn at Meander, and he has an expansion plan which he states will take approximately 7 years to phase through and complete. It's delightful. We're glad that he's doing that. It certainly is greater than 5 years, and no one's proposing to limit it to 5, other than to say that when we write that approval, we'll write it for 10 years to give a buffer, and he can always ask for an extension during the period of that validity. And of course, that would be granted because somebody is pursuing their project. It just makes sure that we clarify when a project dies.
All right, do we have any questions for Alan, comments?
I have one if I can. It was my understanding that, and getting a little bit of different feeling on it, that if somebody, let's just say it was 5 years that they had to pursue this project, if they were pursuing it, like that 5-year timeline wouldn't need to be extended because they had been pursuing it during that time. And so
If they are executing the diligent pursuit of construction, then they have vested rights under Virginia law. But how long do they have to not pursue it before it quits?
Right, so they wouldn't have to apply for an extension, they would just have to be pursuing it.
They're illustrating that they are executing the diligent pursuit. And we can look at that. I have it here in another document. It's exactly what it says. It doesn't define what that is. It is subjective in nature, which is why we're trying to a little more closely define what that looks like. So it's more clear to developers what that is. So, ideally, you'll get communication and you'll get updates over the years. Hey, we're pursuing this. We're looking at financing. You get a thing every once in a while. Or, alternatively, nothing happens. Or I'll give you a good example. Let's say that property transfers, and in somebody's due diligence, they find in the courthouse documents, similar to this mobile home park, that something was approved 40, 50 years ago that no longer meets the intent of our comprehensive plan, was marginally, if ever, diligently pursued. You want to have standing to say that, no, that's a dead project, it was not pursued, and that it's not good indefinitely, because Virginia code says not less than 5, but it doesn't establish an upper limit. So we want to, unless otherwise.
Right, I'm all for establishing a number. I don't think we need, like, some of the stuff we decide on, even 20 years from now, when other things are developed first, could also not make sense in those cases.
I agree.
So I'm all for that. So essentially, they would not have to file for an extension if they were diligently pursuing the project.
Whatever we say, Virginia's vested right laws will trump whatever we do.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
Hannah, you have something to add?
Just one, and it's a little point. taking into consideration the size, complexity, or phasing of the proposed development. I'm just pointing that phrase out because what we're basing this off is state code section, it's 15.2-2261. The way, and we're a Dillon Rule state, of course, and so what the statute reads is size and phasing. They don't have the complexity or the or. I think complexity is sort of implied or built into size and phasing. So a soft recommendation would be that we take that out and say size and phasing, just to keep us in lockstep with state code and to avoid some uncertainty, because I don't think it really buys us anything other than a little bit of risk in terms of something getting invalidated down the road. That is my only point on this thing.
That's a
I
simple
agree.
change.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to avoid anyway.
I think pulling complexity out is going to be important, because how do we define complexity?
Towards the end of that first sentence, Mr. Smith.
Is there any other comments or questions?
Just kind of off topic a little bit. An extension granted, is that administrative? Is there an administrative fee contemplated, or any original fees take care of the extension?
I'm not aware of any fee for an extension that is on the fee schedule that the Board of Supervisors approves every year. You'd simply do it by letter.
Okay, so it's no burden on the applicant.
No, and I don't believe there should be.
Okay, the wording in that sentence then, it will be, is being diligently pursued in good faith or vested rights or otherwise preserved pursuant to the Code of Virginia. What are we changing on that?
Nothing in that, it's the sentence before that. Oh, sorry. It's the sentence before that.
It's the first of the
The
red.
first red word, Jim.
Instead of complexity or phasing, we're saying complexity and phase,
Size and phasing.
size and phasing. Or you want to take complexity out?
Yeah.
If we're generally agreed on that first couple words there, I'll go ahead and make that change.
Okay, so we're striking complexity and putting,
Yeah, we're going to get rid of the complexity and leave the original language essentially till the end of proposed development and
size
begin the
and
new.
phasing. Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
that's easy.
Thank you.
So I got a couple scenarios. For working for a contractor for 30 years, we figured out every way we could to get around whatever we need to get around. So I just got some scenarios I want to ask about that possibly could happen. Let's say that I bought a piece of land and I bring my drawings in, get my drawings approved, and it takes me a year or so to get some financing straightened out and what have you. And I bought a piece of property where I'm going to rely on RSA for water and sewer, okay? So I've spent 2 years to get ready for my project to go, and when my project's ready to go, and RSA don't have any taps to sell me, what happens to my time?
Well, for the first 5 years, I'd say your plan remains valid. But at a point where you can no longer get the utilities and you're not planning to provide your own, your own systems, then you are no longer executing the diligent pursuit of construction.
So because RSA can't do my water and sewer, but they had them when I did it, and you can't buy them and stock them up, then I'm gonna lose my time.
In the limited amount of information in the scenario, based solely on what you stated, I would say that is the likely outcome.
In that scenario, are you saying, hey, in 2 years, some of these, I know are going to come open, I'm just waiting on that? I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I may not be able to get into the 5-year stretch because of the fact that they don't have them available for me to buy.
Without you asking for an extension is the diligent pursuit. You're asking for it to be extended because you still want to do it. But if you take no action, then I would say yes, then that plan, let's say, would become invalid after a period of time of 5 years.
I think what Alan and correct me if I'm wrong, if you were getting close to year 5 and you said, the holdup here is completely out of my control, RSA, I think, is gonna have taps open in the next 2 years. I'm asking for an extension for 3. You know, I guess the question, we're asking you a hypothetical, would you consider that for an extension?
Of course.
I think it'd be this, I mean, it's almost like, you know, another global pandemic happens and everything shuts down and you're close to the end of that. I mean, there's gonna be circumstances out of your control as a developer that I think would, be considered by the designated agent.
Okay, so if I own a piece of property and I've got it all ready to go or whatever, and I've had it for 2 years or 3 years, and Wayne comes along here and says, hey, I want to buy that property from you, and I haven't done anything to it yet. So does Wayne have 5 years, or has he got what I got time remaining?
Is Wayne diligently pursuing construction?
Wayne's gonna build on it.
Okay, is he gonna build that same plan?
Yes, I'm selling to the plan with the property.
I see it as no different, the same as if you were pursuing it. If, let's say, Wayne takes steps to pursue construction, he seeks financing, he seeks bids, he, you know, does engineering, whatever it is to try to pursue that project, he's executing the diligent pursuit of construction.
But what Pete's saying is, does he only have 3 years left, or has he got
He gets 3.
another 5?
I don't think the clock resets.
No,
He's diligently pursuing, then the 5 is ridiculous anyway, it doesn't make any difference.
that's what I'm saying.
So if you sell it at 3 and you've been working on it, Pete, and then he takes over Wayne takes over, who's this Wayne? He takes over what you left off, it's still a running project, and there's no reason that the 5 years would come into play.
But I think what Pete's saying is Pete hasn't done.
I haven't done
anything in 2 or
anything.
3 years.
I haven't done anything. I've got a set of plans approved for this piece of
He
property
couldn't get the money
to develop
do
it.
So now
You've not
he's selling
pursued
to Wayne.
construction, right? I mean, sometimes you just can't do the thing. You just can't accomplish it, whether it's within your control or outside of your control. I mean, my suspicion is that on the mobile home property, they didn't do it because they probably maxed out their design for their septic system. They got a massive drain field out there, and they were waiting for utilities in a very similar scenario that just never came to pass, and it took 53 years, and it's still not there.
Mr. Elliott, you're the designated agent, and I wait 4 years and 11 months and 20 days until I actually break ground and start. I mean, are you gonna base it just off the time, or are you gonna look to see what have I done for the past 4 years and 11 months to try to get this thing going?
Well, again, I'm using the scenario as I haven't done anything, and I'm selling it to him, and it's his property now. And I'm selling him my plans.
Here's the thing on the other side. If I want to be really hard-nosed, and we don't define what the limit is, and the state code says not less than 5 years, and 5 years and 1 day goes by the way it is now, I can say no. I can say your project is invalid without asking for an extension and say no. So just define what the terms are and we'll work within it. I don't intend to do that because I'm a reasonable person and understand how business and money works. But at the end of the day, you know, for the purpose of administering this, it's nice to know what the rules are, and rather than leaving it in one person's hands subjectively.
So if I go out there 4 years and 10 days and ask Mr. Snyder to bring his dozer out there, put me 50 foot of road in, I'm actively working on
You
that
are
project.
pursuing construction, congratulations.
Okay, and I got 5 more years after that, if I apply.
Presumably, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that it's clear.
Well,
That's why we're talking about it, and I hadn't advertised it.
Is the extension, would it be a negotiated extension, or is it a 5-year cap?
Oh, I think that you would want to define the scope.
what does that mean? As an applicant to you
Yeah, I
asking
mean,
for
let's
it?
say if you
or-
ask for an extension, if somebody were to come to me today and say, hey, I've got this site plan, and let's use, let's use a good one here.
If they come in and say, I'm 59, I'm gonna retire in 6 years, I'd like the scope of this project to be in 6 years.
So,
If somebody,
sorry, I'm going to jump in just with
Please.
what this says, and I'm reading from the the state code provision. Upon an application of a subdivider developer prior to the expiration of the recorded plat or final site plan, the designated agent may grant one or more extensions of such approval for additional periods as the designated agent may, at the time the extension is granted, determine to be reasonable. So it feels, I mean, there is a ton of discretion for the designated agent in all parts of this thing.
My question to your point, Mr. Wright, is it says prior to the expiration. When does it expire?
5 years from approval, or am I doing it too early?
That's what we're trying to figure out by our ordinance. But just like Mr. Jackson just said, if, somebody comes in, they're like, hey, I'm going to retire in 6 years and I want to do it then, it's like, cool, let's write you an approval letter that says that you're good for 10 years to give you wiggle room up front.
Yep.
Just like we're trying to do with the Inn at Meander. It was just, you think you're going to get it done in 7 years, let's write it for 10. Put something on your calendar. If it's going to take longer, come see us and we'll write you another 5 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But then, if nothing happens and 20 years goes by and maybe the building codes and the zoning ordinance and the comp plans all changed and it wasn't pursued, you have abandoned the rights to do that. And if everything's the same, cool, you refile and do your project.
And the foundational assumption is that there is progress being made. So
Correct.
if it's 20 years and no progress is being made, then I'm guessing, Alan, I hope you're not working in 20 years, but if you are, you would go, okay, you got to pony up to the bar at this point. So,
Well, let's say, I don't know about 20 years or not, but that's the point. It was an easy case for this last appeal because 53 years was clearly too long. It may not be so clear in the next one, and it may be something that does not go well with what has developed around it, or may cause friction points, because it took so long to do it. Again, if it's being pursued, we're not trying to infringe on anybody's rights. We're just trying to make it easier to administrate.
I think with the
Administer.
flexibility in the language that Mr. Wright provided, I think we set the first standard at 5 years, and that's appropriate. And then from the state code, you as the zoning administrator have the understanding to know the kind of flexibility to build into that extension. I don't think we need to tie your hands.
Fair enough?
Yeah, plus the language already states that the designated agent can determine a longer period at the initial site plan too.
And becoming very aware of that, we're trying to do that at the onset now for these projects.
I guess my only question is, can that approval expire while you're actively engaged in construction?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, and it shouldn't. 5 years of inactivity, you apply for an extension and you say, I haven't done anything for 5 years, but I am going to over the next to this or whatever.
I
But if
think-
you're actively building out there 5 years, like you don't need an extension or anything, right? Because you're actively, right.
And that means you're paying attention to your project, by the way. You're paying attention to it and and you're working on it, it's still in the forefront of your mind. If in 5 years you come in here and you're like, look, I got to keep this thing valid because we're going to do this. That's the point, rather than
Yeah.
waking up one day and trying to see what's left because you never did anything.
So I got another question. And I've just been down the road with these questions, but I like to know. Let's say that I turn my plans in, I'm ready, it's 3 years, and 3 years is up. And by that time, in 3 years, I see the ordinance start to change and different things start to happen where I could take this piece of land and get a whole lot more out of it. Can I turn that in and it's done with, that set of plans, and go with a whole new job?
I mean, you can abandon your project.
So I can abandon that and go with a whole new job if the situation arises.
I mean, depending on what bonds you've put down to complete work that's partially started, but assuming you haven't done anything, sure, you can file a new plan to do something different, and that's okay.
Okay. So there's any other questions or comments? from the planning commission? You got anything to add, Alan?
Nothing to add, sir.
Okay, well, if there's no more questions, public comment? Is anybody online? No, nobody's online. So I guess we'll move on to correspondence and information, and you can tell us, Alan, what we've got going on.
I'll take a peek myself here. Public hearing coming up next for the sign ordinance. We've got a couple items in subcommittee. Going to be talking in a subcommittee, we'll be talking about an ADU ordinance in response to new state code coming up soon, so that'll be fun to unpack. At the moment, I don't have any rezoning or special use permit applications for you, so it's a good time for us to do this other work, and that's what I have for right now.
All right. Is there anything else to come before the commission? If not, I need a motion for adjournment. Or public comment, is there any public comment on any subject? Okay. I need a motion for adjournment. We have a motion and a second. All of us signify by saying aye. Aye. Nay, same sign. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Pete.